The title and thumbnails are not clickbait. I've never really done this before in my more than 10 years of playing the game. And before I get into it, I should preface this by saying I had made my decision to quit months ago, basically since July 4th, 2025 sales. But at the time, I'd already been saving Titan shards and thought to myself I'd stick it out for a few more months. Since then, it was kind of amazing to see how it felt like with almost every decision, Kabam only worked to solidify that decision more and more. And so here we are. I hope you enjoy watching the opening. I've been hoarding Titans for about 6 to 8 months, if I'm not mistaken. In the meantime, I'll go over the many reasons I see no way forward with the game. But also keep in mind that this video is not meant to encourage anybody to quit or discourage playing or spending. And also, I'll still try and keep the points here constructive and actionable. So if you're looking for somebody to rage against the game or the team, that's just not who I am. I think the biggest reason for me leaving is how little my time or money feels rewarded by the game. On one hand, getting units is a little bit easier with rosters having grown. My 3 hour arena grind for milestones every 3 days now takes 2.5 hours. I suppose you could say that real life wages have also gone up around 5 to 10% per year. But when you look at the game, the amount of offers has absolutely skyrocketed. A few years ago, you could expect to spend around 15 to 18k units on each of the two big sales and maybe 6k on gifting. That's 36 to 42,000 units for basically maxing out the unit deals. Still quite a bit and would still require active play basically every day. Now that number is approaching 150,000 units. I don't know what to call that. I think unreasonable is the nicest way to put it. And things are just as bad when it comes to cash offers. Not only have they had their bundle limit increased from 3 to 4 seemingly permanently, but also they happen what feels like every month. Every month or every other month, there's another sale with relatively outsized value asking you to spend $400 to $600. Part of me gets why they've shifted the game in this direction. Post COVID times are tough on the game on the industry as a whole, and Contest is basically trying to capitalize on every bit of previously unrealized potential. But in that process, I'm feeling like they have completely alienated players like me. I personally used to have a max budget of around $600 per year for mcoc. That's already so incredibly much for a hobby. That budget paired with active play and grinding used to satisfy the highest tier for both of the annual sales. Having not spent on contests for a few months has really put that into perspective. The money can go so much further and bring so much more entertainment and gratification in so many other hobbies. I guess I eventually realized that my budget is no longer going to get me anything of perceived value in mcoc. And just to get ahead of the folks saying that my budget, whatever it is it units or cash, can still get me good value in contests today because there's still deals offered with guaranteed value that can be purchased within my means. I do believe that that's a fundamentally flawed statement in the context of mcoc. Everything in this game is relative. Back when I could utilize my budget and time efficiently in my eyes, I was getting around 80 to 90% of what I perceived as valuable guaranteed items for my account. Now, with the same budget or even a little bit higher to account for increase in wages and easier unit grinding, I could end up getting maybe 30% of what I feel is valuable stuff. So my conclusion was, why bother? This shift hasn't only impacted my spending, I'm also just a lot less inclined to spend time in the game or try and compete. Rewards for content might be good in a vacuum, but you look at what's being offered for sales and suddenly the reality becomes very clear. On top of that, competition has never been more paywall than now, especially with the recent top 30 prestige change. Oh, while we're in monetization, I still cannot get over Arena Express. I'm gonna talk about arenas and how miserable the mode has become, with almost every champ coming out or being buffed being a pain in the butt defender a little bit later. But charging money to remove a few screens and clicks in the UI flow to this day is just so insane to me. So I guess at the end of it, for me, if I wasn't spending money on the game and I didn't feel like the game valued my time, I started to wonder if I even liked the game anymore. My two favorite modes in MCOC are Arena and BGs. I know that sounds unhinged, but to me, Arenas was always the perfect fidget toy game mode. It's probably kept me from having to get like an ADHD diagnosis, and it gave me units. That's just a win-win right there. And BG's was the perfect amount of focused gameplay without the pressure of letting down a whole alliance that came with the war. But for a few years now, we have been seeing this massive and relentless influx of overbearing defensive kits. A long time ago at this point, the demanding defenders, among other factors, pushed me out of war competition, and now they have made BGs pretty miserable too. But in my opinion, the game mode impacted the most has been the arenas. You can't prepare for a matchup in the arena. You can't really choose a counter. And facing some of these new or not so new defenders without a counter, even in the Infinite Streak, is such a nightmare. Serpent, Spider Woman, Jean Grey, Dark Phoenix, Enchantress. Are just some of the champs I actively die to in the arena. I probably could be paying more attention to the fights, but for God's sake, it's arena. This situation, especially with the arenas and influx of defenders making gameplay miserable, has been really frustrating as far as feedback and conversations with the devs as well. I'm not going to delve too much into the details because I'm not sure how many of these comments, if any, were ever made publicly. But basically, requests of some sort of relief in the arenas are often, way too often, met with the insinuation that changing the arenas could end up resulting in removal of some of the unit income from them, or that the infinite streak was never intended to exist. So I suppose the arena feedback is best left silenced. Shifting away from the modes and to the roster in general, I'm finding myself simply unable to keep up. I can't keep up with the kits and understand them enough for playing the champs to be enjoyable to me. I can't even really keep up with the defender kits, especially when so many of them are breaking the class wheel. It's exhausting, and it's only getting worse. The backlog of champs to keep up with is growing every month, and all of that is despite me for the last few years having had access to the CCP beta and a place to test every one of these champs. I can't imagine how overwhelming this bloated roster must feel to anybody else whose job isn't to keep up. An ability to keep up is definitely not limited to champ kits either. New content and bosses are just kicking my butt to a degree that I feel more and more content in the game that I have been playing for 10 plus years is just no longer for me. Ares was the biggest offender here. Man, I couldn't get a single SP2 avoidance down. And this comment from one of the Kabam live streams still resonates in my mind about how they're going to be using him in a bunch of future endgame content. They haven't yet. I genuinely hope they never do, but they definitely seemed pretty set on it at the time. I get that some of this makes me sound like I want the game to cater to my every limitation. I know I'm busier now in life and have less time for the game, but it's not that much less time, and I don't think feeling like a game that I was keeping up with just fine for years, moving in a direction that's unsustainable and unreasonable for me to keep up with, is me being entitled. I feel like MCOC at its core is a hero collector as much as it is an action RPG. We're here trying to collect new toys and play with them, and I believe that what has happened to champ acquisition systems of the game since towards the end of the 6 star and definitely the beginning of the 7 star life cycle has been incredibly disruptive and at times frustrating. Champ acquisition in contests was never perfect from a player point of view. I'm not sure that a perfect system for the players would have been sustainable for the devs. I think looking back, the only time players speak fondly about the champ chase is the old 5 star featured days, where the featured champ had a pretty high chance at dropping. Kabam moved away from that basically because it made targeting a specific champ too cheap. We've had a few systems since then for sure. Right now, we have way too many paywall, time gated, or insane unit wall champs, with no solid date or commitment of ever adding them to the basic or a more permanent pool. A while back, I took count of my unowned 7 stars, and something like 70% of them are in some way gated. This is, in my opinion, just terrible. I get that folks fortunate enough to be able to afford all these champs day one are definitely on average spending less than they would have acquiring them on day one in basically any of the previous systems. But the rest of us are faced with this black box of not knowing when, if ever, we could reasonably get them. My insane opening today is partially a result of another issue I have with the 7-star release. In my opinion, the Titan system is incredibly broken. Let me explain. Titans are the somewhat reasonable way of getting new champs in the game. They're supposed to be more premium than basic 7 stars, so say you open a batch of Titans, get a few champs, and decide to invest in them with ranks and 6. You max a champ out, and in a little bit, you manage to get enough for another Titan. You pop it, and you get the champ you already maxed out. You just traded 20,000 Titan shards for basically 1,200. That's terrible. So now, in order to avoid that, you have two choices. Don't fully invest in the champ from a Titan until they're out of it, which takes up to more than 9 months. Or don't open Titans until the champs you have maxed out are all out. That also takes up to more than 9 months. So here I am, opening months worth of hoarded Titans because I didn't want to go for the clearly insane 20k to 1200 trade on what's supposed to be the most premium champion shard. That's not only unfun, but it's also basically eliminates any drive I may have had to really go out there and chase Titans or, God forbid, spend on them. 9 months is a really long time. Honestly, even 3 months is a really long time for a demand of a resource to feel immediate enough to chase in the game. On top of that, feeling like I need to hoard Titans or having stash of Titans already makes chasing some of these new gated exclusive champs significantly less enticing if you know they're gonna be included in the Titan. In those cases, the choice turns into either not buying them or buying them and not heavily invest SIGs in them, potentially for months, or I guess risk the 20k to 1200 trade. I don't really have a perfect solution here. On one hand, I get that having all that time to chase down a champ you really want from the pool can be really helpful to many. But at the same time, champs are in the Titan for far too long. I'm not going to be around to see if Kabam comes up with any remedy to this. I do recall them mentioning that Titans definitely didn't succeed in their mission of making hoarding feel unnecessary. So maybe this is on their radar. The shift back towards highly incentivized daily play or having less when things are missed is a bit of a newer one. I started noticing it after my decision to quit was made. And I'm honestly grateful for it. It really solidified my decision and gave me even more clarity. I think Kabam is trying to slowly turn energy back into a bottleneck for endgame players. Basically, once a player starts MCOC for a few hours, there's energy isn't a limitation for what they can do or how much content they can tackle. That limitation slowly starts settling in and is with every new player for at least a few months. Scarcity of energy ebbs and flows as they progress through the game, but for a long time, us as endgame veterans haven't really had to worry about energy much. For a while, we could afford to be a little less efficient with energy and not worry about using it up or risk losing progress as much. We could tackle questing content or BG's matches on our own terms, but I believe Kabam is trying to claw back that freedom and turn energy back into a meaningfully limiting sessioning tool, even for endgame players. They're removing energy from rewards and adding high energy costs basically every opportunity they get. Now, if you want to spend a chunk of time grinding in BGs in the limited time you can have as an adult with responsibilities, you can either get through only 3 matches or pay up for refills. Same goes for act content or even some endgame content. I feel this shift in priorities has even prevented modes from fulfilling what I believe was their primary goal. The new AQ rates testing grounds was the most egregious example of this that stuck out to me. I felt like this mode was primarily intended to allow folks to test champs and their viability in raids in a lower stake condition than AQ itself. But with basically half a refill needed per run, you're really not encouraged to actually experiment. I understand that the mode gives a ton of solo event points, but I don't think that was the purpose of the mode either. So we ended up with a testing mode that's instead just another energy dump and a super daily event farm instead. The idea of needing to play the game when the game wants you to rather than when you want to or can isn't limited to energy either. There are now also a ton of events and stores that reset at various intervals, all expecting you to be constantly tuned into the calendar of the game or risk missing out on stuff. Even the stores that reset weekly don't all reset at the same day, so a weekly reset can still mean needing to remember multiple reset times. And recently, the most outright shift towards this daily mandated engagement has hit the game with the rework to daily quests, basically taking heavily outdated Alliance 3-day events that used to be completed by members simply playing the game, and some of the stuff from lower tier EQ that were auto farmable for a whole month, updating them and smashing them into a new daily quest. The quest rewards are admittedly pretty good for now. I'm not going to be around to see if Kabam keeps them updated, but the fact that you not only need to remember to do them every day, but also get penalized and miss out on the best day if you happen to miss more than 2 days is just adding to an already overbearing mental load of the game. This daily engagement requirement also heavily impacted one of the modes I think I was the minority for being a fan of. I really liked Doom Cycle. It wasn't perfect, far from it, but it was new and had little elements of interesting gameplay for me. But basically, you only got 3 entries per day, even on day one when this was new. The mode was new, had just dropped, and people were still learning about it. If you didn't manage to engage with the game mode extensively every day for a month, there was a very real chance of missing an entire Titan. Of course, cash deals were offered to grant more entries, and they were very reasonably priced, at least compared to the unhinged spending norms set by contests over the years. But at that point, I already decided to halt all spending, knowing that I'm quitting the game. There was also an absolute majority of the player base who has never and will never spend cash on the game. And in those cases, the daily play requirements were, in my opinion, just stupid. And they probably took away from any real chance the mode may have had at finding an audience within contests, given how starkly different it was from the gameplay we are used to. I'm going to thread carefully here because I don't want my words to cause unintended confusion or spread misinformation. I've been in a CCP for many years now, I think coming on 7. In that time, the program has grown significantly, and I think so have I. But I believe that a widespread shift has settled in, not just in the CCP, but also in the community as a whole. I believe that voices that take players actively being invested in the game and caring about the game for granted, and at all times blindly siding with the company over the players, have become emboldened and more pervasive. I feel anybody caring enough to play the game or caring enough to engage with the game on a social platforms should always be seen as just an enormous privilege. Obviously, that doesn't extend to the few loud, annoying voices that would go after devs or community members personally. Those people can indeed fuck off. But having strong feelings toward the game or wanting more or better out of the game is not only normal, it's honestly incredibly valuable for a live service game going into its second decade. But now, far too often, the community asking for more, asking for better, or honestly asking for the bare minimum is seen as entitlement by a growing number of voices within Kabam and the community. Part of me thinks that maybe the more level headed critical voices may have gotten tired of the game or its community over the years and churned out, leaving a bigger chunk of the indefensible losers who'd resort to personal attacks to get any point across, and that has made critical voices as a whole lose credibility. Whatever it is, though, I do believe that at least from the public facing side of the company, there really should be more reverence and appreciation towards critical voices. Shutting down suggestions at every given opportunity is just going to kill the discourse and community engagement as a whole. Also, want to take a moment and discuss content creator server as much as I reasonably can. I think many folks put everybody in the CCP under the blanket assumption of them being an extended marketing arm for Kabam and directly beholden to them in exchange for an opportunity to monetize views. I don't think that's entirely accurate. There are still very diverse voices in the CCP representing players of many progression, engagement, spending levels, and many localities. The CCP chats, while definitely susceptible to what I described earlier, is objectively not an echo chamber. But it's not without its fault either. I do believe that constructive feedback is way too often conflated with positive feedback. I want to quickly address the CCP codes and revenue sharing. I've seen some concerns from the community that these codes could push creators benefiting from them to lean more heavily towards protecting the interests of the company over the community. And yeah, that's possible that creators fall for that trap and end up portraying everything in the game with blind positivity or sane washing every decision made by the company. But at the same time, I think doing so would irreparably damage the creator's credibility and result in a huge loss of support. I believe most, if not all, creators will remain true to their authentic selves. At least I hope so. I also don't really envy the position of any of them right now, having to potentially thread carefully when it comes to voicing their genuine positive opinions with the risk of it seeming financially motivated. MCOC has been with me through some of the best and also some of the hardest times of my life. But honestly, what MCOC has turned into and seems to be turning into more and more is not the game I once loved. I don't think it's been that for a few years now. I honestly don't see things getting better with the game, and I'm tired of waiting for them, hoping for them to get better. Every day playing the game now, I just can't help but to feel like my time is being valued less by the game, and so is my money. All in the service of a game that's too bloated for me to enjoy, a game that's expecting more of my attention with less respect for my schedule, and the community and a dev team that's increasingly resistant to feedback. I'm done waiting for the game I love to come back. I'm not sure even if course correction can bring that game back. Not having spent any money on the game for the past few months, after a few years of ramping down my spending significantly, has also given me incredible clarity. The sunk cost feeling of being attached to my monetary stakes in the game are all gone. And the entertainment budget has been going so much further in so many other avenues. I now, as someone not far from middle aged, have a Lego collection that I have always dreamt of. I've picked up renovating and plumbing as a hobby just in my free time. And I think the people around me and myself are a lot better off and happier as a result. Despite all the reasons I gave above, I don't have a lot of regrets about my time with the game. I think what I regret the most, though, is not speaking out more, at least publicly. I think I spent that time that I had, especially after winding down the channel, focusing on providing feedback within the CCP. Maybe I could have done more. I'm sorry if I let you in the game down. Anyways, that's about it. The script for this video was mostly done weeks before the opening you've been watching so far and finalized a few days before the Titan crystals change over. So I guess I hope I got some good pulls, and I hope y'all enjoyed the video and what I've had to say so far. Goodbye, MCOC.